Have you ever paused to wonder where the spine-chilling tales behind your beloved slasher films truly originated? Imagine that the urban legends haunting our nightmares were already lurking in the dim corners of 1960s cinema, patiently waiting for their moment to emerge. From masked killers to eerie, haunted towns, these cult classics did more than just terrify audiences. They sparked a legacy that would inspire generations of horror enthusiasts. Today, we're pulling back the veil on 15 unforgettable films that transformed whispered rumors into gripping legends and raw fear into cinematic art. Ready to trace the origins of the modern slasher? Let's venture into the darkness together. The 1960s began with a groundbreaking moment in horror cinema when Alfred Hitchcock released Psycho, a film that forever transformed the landscape of slasher movies. At its core, the film follows Marion Crane, a secretary who flees with stolen money and finds refuge at the eerie Bates Motel, managed by the seemingly kind yet nervous Norman Bates. Hitchcock masterfully plays with audience expectations, building suspense from the very moment Marion crosses the rain-soaked threshold of the motel's lobby. The now iconic shower scene, underscored by Bernard Herrmann's piercing string composition, stands as one of the most analyzed sequences in film history, not only for its intense terror but also for its innovative editing techniques. What set Psycho apart was its clever manipulation of urban legend, the notion of murderous evil concealed beneath ordinary appearances, a concept that had long circulated in small-town rumors. Norman Bates, inspired by the real-life killer Ed Gein, embodies the disturbing idea of the boy next door, turned monstrous, a theme that would resonate throughout future slasher films. The shocking revelation of Norman's true identity during the tense rocking chair scene established a new standard for twist endings, influencing iconic characters like Michael Myers in Halloween and Pamela Voorhees in Friday the 13th. Psycho also reshaped the movie-going experience itself. Theaters prohibited late arrivals to maintain secrecy, heightening the shock for audiences. Although initially divisive among critics, the film electrified viewers and sparked an entire wave of filmmakers intrigued by killers hidden in plain sight, psychological unraveling, and the terrifying possibility that evil doesn't always bear a monstrous visage, but might wear the face of your neighbor. In Psycho, urban legend effectively morphs into urban nightmare, laying the very foundation for today's modern slasher genre. Just months before Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho stirred the American horror scene, British cinema introduced its own chilling urban legend with Michael Powell's Peeping Tom. This film boldly challenged the limits of on-screen violence during a period when cinema was rarely shaken. The narrative is hauntingly straightforward. Mark Lewis, a reserved focus puller working at a London film studio, becomes obsessed with capturing his murders on camera. His weapon of choice is a blade cleverly attached to the lens, allowing him to film the final terrified moments of his victims. This horrifying twist turns the voyeuristic gaze on its head, a film about watching that comments on the dangerous power of cinema itself. Mark is not merely a cold-blooded killer. He is a tragic figure scarred by childhood trauma and his father's cruel psychological experiments. The film weaves the urban legend of the quiet neighbor who hides deadly secrets beneath a facade of normalcy. Set against the cramped flats and watchful eyes of London, privacy becomes an illusion. Powell's innovative use of POV shots, letting viewers see through the killer's camera, violently places audiences in Mark's shoes. This technique laid the groundwork for a slasher staple, the first-person perspective stalking of victims. Peeping Tom's reception was explosive and harsh. Michael Powell's career was nearly ruined by the backlash. Yet, with time, the film attained cult status, recognized not just for its technical innovations, but its profound insight into the relationship between viewer, camera, and violence. The influence of this film permeates the slasher genre, reminding us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones silently observing from the shadows, or even sitting beside us in the dark. Number 3. The City of the Dead, 1960. Imagine driving through a fog-enshrouded New England town. If you've ever had that eerie feeling, you might have the City of the Dead, released as Horror Hotel in America, to thank. This film weaves a classic urban legend, a cursed town haunted by a dark past steeped in witchcraft. The sleepy hamlet of Whitewood becomes a place where ancient secrets and ritual sacrifices linger through centuries. The plot follows college student Nan Barlow, who arrives to research a paper but soon finds herself overwhelmed by the town's sinister grip. Christopher Lee's role as Professor Driscoll lends a weighty presence to the film, embodying a mentor with a dark connection to Whitewood's occult history. The townspeople are wary and unwelcoming, and the encloaked in an ever-present mist sets the standard for the isolated, creepy setting that future slashers would adopt. The film's story of villagers devoted to a witch burned alive long ago, returning for revenge, captures the essence of urban myth transformed into gothic horror. The stark black and white cinematography reinforces the forbidding atmosphere, casting long shadows that speak of lingering evil. The City of the Dead helped establish key elements that would shape the slasher genre: solitary locations, cursed pasts, and the lurking threat that waits for a newcomer's unwary arrival. Though it lacks the gore found in later films, its unrelenting sense of dread and haunting mood paved the way for successors like Friday the 13th, which expanded on the outsider in an eerie town theme by mixing folklore with contemporary fears. Number 4, Eyes Without a Face, 1960. George Franju's Eyes Without a Face unfolds like an eerie urban legend you might hear whispered at a gathering. The story follows a surgeon desperate to restore his daughter's beauty after a tragic car accident by kidnapping young women and removing their faces. Set against the cold, shadowy halls of a Parisian chateau, Dr. Janissaire and his devoted assistant roam the city in search of victims, driven by twisted love and scientific obsession. The daughter, Christian, hauntingly glides through the house wearing a blank, expressionless mask, an image as unsettling and iconic as any masked slasher that would follow. The surgical scenes are disturbingly vivid, shocking audiences of the era and inspiring future filmmakers to push the boundaries of on-screen horror. Eyes Without a Face paved the way for the mad scientist subgenre and introduced the use of masks as symbols of fractured identity, a motif echoed in later slashers like Michael Myers with his blank face and Jason's hockey mask. More than just scares, the film blends poetry with terror, telling a tragic tale of guilt, obsession, and love. Modern slasher films owe a profound debt to Franju's quiet yet haunting masterpiece. Number 5, The Innocents, 1961. What could be more terrifying than a haunted house? Perhaps a haunted mind. Directed by Jack Clayton, The Innocents is a chilling psychological horror that masterfully adapts Henry James' novella, The Turn of the Screw. Deborah Kerr stars as Miss Giddens, a governess entrusted with the care of 2 children in a sprawling English manor. Soon, she becomes convinced that supernatural forces are at play and that the innocent children may be entwined in sinister happenings. What makes The Innocents particularly unsettling is its refusal to provide clear answers. Are the ghosts real, or is Miss Giddens descending into madness? This ambiguity evokes the essence of urban legends, ghost stories that evolve with each telling, whispered around firesides and over hushed conversations. The film's evocative black and white cinematography bathes every scene in shadows, with flickering faces glimpsed in windows and distant laughter echoing through empty halls. Later slasher films would draw inspiration from The Innocents' themes of isolation, unreliable narrators, and the notion that true horror can dwell as much within the mind as it does in the surrounding darkness. Its ambiguous ending, leaving audiences guessing whether the supernatural is genuine or a product of a fractured psyche, set a precedent for tension-filled narratives that define modern horror. The mounting dread, sustained by what remains unseen or uncertain, illustrates that sometimes the most terrifying things are those left to the imagination. The Innocents remains a pivotal influence, and a cornerstone of psychological slasher cinema. Carnival of Souls, 1962, unfolds like a ghost story whispered by a friend who insists it really happened to someone they know. Mary Henry, the protagonist, survives a harrowing car accident only to find herself relentlessly pursued by silent, spectral figures. Crafted on a modest budget and filmed in the stark landscapes of Utah, Herc Harvey's indie classic gained cult status, distinguished by its eerie, dreamlike ambience that set it apart from the early 60s horror scene. The narrative follows Mary as she relocates to a quiet town to accept a position as a church organist. However, she becomes inexplicably drawn to an abandoned carnival on the town's outskirts, a liminal space where the spirits of the dead appear to dance. The film's haunting, desolate settings, ghostly makeup, and unsettling organ music combine to create an atmosphere that is both otherworldly and intensely personal. Carnival of Souls weaves urban legend into its fabric, tapping into the terrifying notion of the living dead and the unsettling feeling that something sinister lies just beneath the surface. The film culminates in a haunting twist. Mary was never truly alive after the accident. Ahead of its time, Carnival of Souls anticipated the rise of psychological horror and introduced motifs like the final girl that would become staples within the slasher genre. Mary's pervasive sense of alienation, her struggle to connect with the living, along with the persistent pursuit by faceless apparitions, laid the groundwork for countless horror films, ranging from Nightmare on Elm Street to Silent Hill, that explore the unsettling boundary between life and death and the dreamlike blending of reality and hallucination. Inspired by the German expressionist classic The Cabinet of Caligari, 1962, reimagines madness and illusion for a contemporary audience, crafting a psychological urban legend fit for modern times. The narrative centers on Jane Lindstrom, a woman stranded after a flat tire who finds herself in a strange estate ruled by the enigmatic Dr. Caligari. Almost immediately, Jane senses that reality here is distorted. Nothing is quite as it seems. The other inhabitants are equally trapped, and the lines separating truth from delusion increasingly blur. The film unfolds like a fever dream, employing surreal set designs, tilted angles, and an escalating aura of paranoia. As Jane navigates the estate's labyrinthine corridors, she uncovers layers of mind games, gaslighting, and concealed intentions. At its core, this urban legend recounts the timeless tale of the Mad Doctor, but the Cabinet of Caligari transforms it into a metaphor for psychological control and manipulation. The unexpected ending, revealing that Jane's harrowing experience was a hallucination occurring during psychiatric therapy, anticipates the unreliable narratives that would later become a hallmark of slashers and thrillers alike. Though it failed to achieve commercial success upon release, The Cabinet of Caligari anticipated the surge of psychological horror that would dominate late 20th century cinema. It laid the groundwork for films such as A Nightmare on Elm Street and Shutter Island by emphasizing distorted perceptions, shifting realities, and the lurking terrors within one's own mind. The question it leaves us with, is this reality, or is sanity slipping away? Remains one of horror's most haunting enigmas, cementing the film's enduring legacy as a profound influence on the genre. Number 8. Homicidal, 1961. William Castle's Homicidal is a pure embodiment of urban legend. The film begins with a mysterious woman named Emily arriving in a quiet town. Secrets thicken as bodies start to accumulate. Early on, Emily hires a justice of the peace for a late-night marriage ceremony, only to murder him moments afterward, setting the town on edge. As the investigation unfolds, it becomes clear that Emily is tied to the wealthy and reclusive Warren family. Homicidal boldly explores themes of gender identity and family dynamics, pushing boundaries well ahead of its time. The shocking twist reveals that Emily is actually Warren, disguising herself through cross-dressing to conceal past trauma and inheritance disputes. This twist was groundbreaking in 1961 and laid the groundwork for future films that delve into hidden identities and dual personalities, echoes of which are found in Sleepaway Camp and Dressed to Kill. Known for his showmanship, Castle even included a fright break, inviting terrified audience members to leave the theater before the climax. Like a true urban legend, the narrative drips with gossip, whispered suspicions, and the unnerving notion that nothing in this small town is as it appears. The film's emphasis on concealed family secrets, disguised killers, and last-minute reveals helped shape the structure of subsequent slashers, while its unique blend of camp and menace proves that horror can be both shocking and entertaining. In Castle's hands, Homicidal stands as a cunning proto-slasher that still delivers chills today. Before Mario Bava became renowned as the maestro of Italian horror, he crafted Black Sabbath in 1963, a chilling anthology of 3 tales woven from urban legends that feel as if they were told around flickering campfires. Among these, the second segment, The Telephone, holds particular significance for the slasher genre. It tells the story of Rosie, a woman terrorized by threatening phone calls from a man she once helped convict. Alone in her apartment, with elongated shadows creeping across the walls, she becomes increasingly convinced that her stalker is closing in, and she's right. This segment pioneered the now iconic trope that the call is coming from inside the house, later immortalized in films such as Black Christmas and When a Stranger Calls. Bava masterfully blends suspenseful stalking with supernatural chills, elevating the fear to another plane. The other 2 segments, A Tale of a Vengeful Vampire and A Cursed Ring, also play on classic urban legends, filled with twist endings and moral warnings that linger long after the screen fades to black. Bava's command of color and atmosphere, together with Boris Karloff's eerie hosting, transforms Black Sabbath into a fever dream steeped in fear and folklore. The sense of isolation, the unknown caller, and the climactic confrontation established core staples of the slasher genre. Whenever you see a terrified babysitter, a ringing phone, or an unstoppable killer in a horror film, you are witnessing echoes of Black Sabbath's Midnight Tales. Mario Bava's anthology laid a foundation that continues to resonate in the chilling sounds and shadows of the slasher world. Number 10. The Haunting, 1963. Robert Wise's The Haunting stands as a masterclass in the art of suggestion and suspense, drawing on the chilling urban legends surrounding haunted mansions and restless spirits. The story unfolds with a group of strangers invited to the infamous Hill House to investigate paranormal phenomena. Yet, it quickly becomes apparent that the house itself, and perhaps their own fractured minds, pose the greatest threats. Julie Harris delivers a gripping performance as Eleanor, a woman burdened by her troubled past and growing increasingly convinced that the house is alive. Wise's direction is a lesson in restraint. Doors seem to breathe, walls subtly bulge, and whispers fill the air, but the source of terror remains tantalizingly out of sight. This refusal to directly reveal the ghosts invites viewers to conjure their own deepest fears, an approach steeped in the tradition of urban legends that thrive on the unseen and unknowable. The Haunting made a lasting impact on the slasher genre through its emphasis on setting, a location that acts almost as a living, malevolent character, and its focus on psychological unraveling. The concept of an isolated group trapped together, subjected to unseen forces that prey on their vulnerabilities and drive them towards madness or death, became a cornerstone of countless horror films to follow. The film's persistent ambiguity, whether the ghosts are truly real or products of Eleanor's deteriorating sanity, remains one of horror cinema's most haunting questions, perpetuating the legend of Hill House and influencing the tension and uncertainty that modern slashers often employ to great effect. Number 11. Blood Feast, 1963. If you've ever wondered where the modern slasher's obsession with gore originated, look no further than Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast. Touted as the first splatter movie, this low-budget shocker tells the story of Fuad Ramzi, a deranged caterer who carries out an ancient Egyptian blood feast by gruesomely murdering and dismembering unsuspecting women across Miami. This narrative taps into a classic urban legend, the local butcher or grotesque figure hiding sinister motives while lurking in plain sight. The storyline may be thin, but its impact is immense. Ramsey's ritualistic killings, complete with graphic blood and guts, shatter taboos and pave the way for explicit violence in future slasher films. The movie's lurid marketing, over-the-top deaths, and campy performances established a template for exploitation horror, demonstrating that shock and spectacle could sometimes be more memorable than subtlety. Though initially dismissed by critics, Blood Feast became a midnight movie sensation and garnered cult status over time. The concept of a killer on a mission, systematically eliminating victims with creative brutality, became a foundational element of the slasher formula. For better or worse, every chainsaw-wielding maniac and masked murderer owes a nod to Fuad Ramsey and his gruesome feast. Number 12. Straight Jacket, 1964. What if the person you trusted most, your own mother, was a murderer? Straight Jacket, featuring Joan Crawford, confronts this chilling urban legend head-on. The film opens with a stark flashback. Lucy Harbin discovers her husband in bed with another woman and, consumed by rage, hacks them both to death with an axe right before her young daughter's eyes. As a result, Lucy is confined to a mental institution for 20 years. Upon her release, she attempts to reunite with her now-grown daughter, Carol. But soon after her return, a series of axe murders begins anew. Is Lucy slipping back into madness, or is someone else orchestrating these killings to frame her? Director William Castle expertly cranks up the suspense, blending soap opera melodrama with vivid violence. Crawford delivers a performance that is both unhinged and empathetic, capturing the haunting fear that some past horrors can never truly be left behind. The motif of the killer mother would later explode in popularity within the slasher genre, with films like Friday the 13th introducing Pamela Voorhees as the quintessential avenging maternal figure. Straight Jacket's fusion of family drama, intergenerational trauma, and shocking brutality laid the groundwork for a whole subgenre centered on maternal slasher villains. The film's twist ending, revealing the true perpetrator, solidifies its status as a proto-slasher classic. It demonstrates that sometimes, the darkness within the family tree carries a legacy just as terrifying as any masked killer in the night. Number 13. The Sadist, 1963. Inspired by the chilling real-life murders committed by Charles Starkweather, The Sadist plunges viewers into a relentless terror rooted in a classic urban legend scenario. The plot centers on three teachers stranded on a desolate desert road, helplessly caught in the crosshairs of a gun-toting psychopath and his equally unhinged girlfriend. The oppressive sun beats down as isolation and impending doom escalate, crafting a mood that would become a foundation for future slasher narratives. Arch Hall Jr. delivers a chilling performance as Charlie, exuding sadistic glee with dead-eyed menace, intensifying the film's raw and unflinching violence. The movie's gritty, low-budget aesthetic adds to its grim realism, making the looming threat of being stalked by a stranger in a remote place all the more palpable. This theme of vulnerability in an isolated setting would echo powerfully in later classics like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Wolf Creek. The Sadist is an unforgiving and nerve-wracking experience, its pacing and brutality far ahead of its time. The overwhelming sense of helplessness, mounting tension, and unexpected bursts of violence all point toward the structure and tone that would define the slasher genre. Ultimately, the film is a nightmare born from being in the wrong place at the wrong time, immortalized as a cinematic urban legend that still resonates with audiences today. Number 14. The Night Walker, 1964. In this unsettling blend of urban legend and nightmare, Barbara Stanwyck portrays Aaron, a woman haunted by vivid, unsettling dreams involving a mysterious lover. These dreams grow increasingly ominous following the apparent death of her jealous, blind husband. Directed by William Castle and penned by Richard Matheson, The Night Walker blurs the boundary between fantasy and reality, setting a precedent for future horror films exploring the dangers lurking within the subconscious. Aren's dreams become so vivid that she begins to question her own sanity, a classic fear rooted in urban legend. What if you can't trust your own mind? The narrative intertwines themes of gaslighting, murder, and greed, grounded emotionally by Stanwyck's compelling performance. The film's shifting realities and hallucinatory sequences would later inspire the nightmare logic found in slashers like A Nightmare on Elm Street. The Night Walker is a heady mixture of psychological suspense and gothic melodrama. Its dreamlike structure paves the way for horror stories that challenge the viewer's grasp on reality, whispering a chilling warning: beware the darkness within, for that is where the real monsters reside. Number 15, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 1969. The slasher genre, as we recognize it today, owes much to Italian giallo, and Dario Argento's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage stands as a foundational masterpiece. The film centers on Sam Dalmas, an American writer living in Rome, who becomes an unwitting witness to a brutal assault in an art gallery. Drawn into a perilous web of mystery, deceit, and murder, Sam embarks on a relentless quest to uncover the truth behind the attack. Argento's direction transforms the city into a living, breathing character, its modern facades concealing ancient evils and dark secrets. The film dazzles with its stylistic flourishes, gloved killers, stalking camera angles, and meticulously crafted shock sequences that create an atmosphere thick with suspense. The killer's identity remains obscured until the climactic finale, their motives entwined with hidden trauma and obsession, a chilling urban legend come to life. The Bird with a Crystal Plumage introduced key elements that would define the slasher genre: the faceless, enigmatic killer, the vulnerable yet resolute protagonist, and a sequence of escalating, brutal murders. Argento's influence rippled outward quickly, laying the groundwork for iconic horror milestones such as Halloween and Friday the 13th, shaping the endless procession of masked assailants stalking the screen. This film vividly brings the urban legend of a relentless killer lurking in the city into stark, stylish reality, a blueprint for terror that continues to inspire filmmakers and haunt audiences to this day. These seminal films from the 1960s intertwined urban legends with cinematic storytelling, crafting the foundational myths that gave rise to the modern slasher genre. Their enduring themes, innovative techniques, and relentless suspense continue to resonate, ensuring that the chilling legacy of these pioneering works lives on, terrifying new generations of audiences and shaping horror cinema's evolution. If this journey into the origins of slasher films captivated you as much as it did us, be sure to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more in-depth explorations into the eerie world of horror cinema.